Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. As always, I am Mike Chisholm. As always, I am excited to host this show and have compelling guests that talk about, everything around the space of men's mental wellness. Today's guest is incredible. He's a cancer survivor. Not just a cancer survivor, but a cancer survivor of something called penile cancer. Didn't know that existed? Me neither. You want to flip through to the next whatever it is that you're going to listen to? Don't. It's a phenomenal story. His name's Whit Penner. And Whit is just, he's a ball of light and energy and has gone through something that many people, whether you're a man, whether you're a partner of a man, whether you have a man in your life somewhere, just the unknown of going through something like that is absolutely astounding. Whit has gone through it. He has survived it, and he has graciously taken some of his time to advocate and to talk about it. Now, through the episode, we actually talk about another cancer survivor, one that's in my life. This is Alara. This is my granddaughter, Alara. And we talk about her in this episode. That's one of the ways that Whit and I actually originally connected was Alara's journey through cancer was very public. My wife and I wrote a book about it. And so we talk about her a little bit in the episode. And this is the gal. So when you hear us talking about my granddaughter or Alara or whatever, this is her right here, 7 years old, cancer survivor. Hi. Obviously, as we go through this episode, and there are sometimes as we do heCasts, what might be construed as advice might come out. We're not giving advice here. People are telling their stories and they're talking about what they've learned. Obviously, if you have something going on, and Whit talks about this, I mean, my goodness, being proactive about things that might be going on in our body, go get a professional to take a look at things. If you've got stuff going on with your mental health, go talk to a professional about these things. We love using heCast as a platform for people to talk about their stories, but in no way are we passing ourselves off as experts. Or even advocates for that matter. What we love to do is hear people, their stories, and through that, maybe we can examine what's going on in our lives or the lives of people around us. If you haven't downloaded the He Changed It app, go to hechangedit.com for all the information about the platform and what we're trying to do. Thank you very much, and we hope that you enjoy this very special episode of heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. As always, I am Mike Chisholm. As always, I am excited to be here, annoyingly so sometimes, to talk about the different stories that come up in the world of men's mental wellness and all of the things around that. The stories that I feel like many times hosting this podcast, I've got the best seat in the house. And I get to hear the stories front and center, and knowing what the stories are sometimes before the conversation itself unfolds is one of those. It's one of those little gifts that I have. Now, this story in particular with Whit Penner today is just. To me, it's mind blowing. This is one that I've wanted to save for one of our TELUS episodes that we put out because the story is absolutely. It's one that every man needs to hear, as far as I'm concerned. Not just every man, everybody who has a man in their life needs to hear this story as well. Because really, at the end of the day, life doesn't necessarily go the way we all think it's going to go, and all sorts of stuff come into play. And we're going to talk about this. Whit is a cancer survivor. Two-time cancer survivor. And we're going to go through that right now. I'm going to ask, before we kind of start talking about the actual nuts and bolts of the story, the first question I'm going to have for you is this. Did it take courage to start being as open as you are about your journey? Does it take courage to do it? Because you do it with such ease.
I've had that question come up before with other friends and other people that I've met through this journey that have had their own cancers. I think the answer is yes, but I also think in my situation, it might not have been. I've always been an open person. Mm-hmm. We have known each other that long, but just with everything, growing up, bullied in high school, that kind of stuff. But once you hit adulthood, you kind of figure out who you are. And I think people are always changing.
Yeah.
But in this situation, you know, and like you said, we'll get to what it's about, but it's a very specific type of cancer.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said to you earlier, like when I found out and I was diagnosed, like the writing was kind of on the wall, but we didn't want to accept it, you know. And when it happened, it was kind of like, okay, like let's grieve on it real quick and then let's get to work. But for me, what I kind of look at it like I want a legacy, but I don't want a legacy from an egotistical point of view.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want a legacy that helps others. So I've always said this, and I've helped many men since, not to toot my own horn, but I go like, if I could help one man avoid this, or at least feel like he's heard or he's got someone by his side through this, that's all I'm here for the rest of my life. And it's happened, you know. You'd be surprised how many men I've not talked to where I've talked to their partners instead, their wives. I have texting conversations. I have a friend in England who got penile cancer, beat it, and then 6 months later, his wife was diagnosed with lymphoma, and she's in the throes of chemotherapy as we speak, waiting for her PET scan in like a couple months. And so she went through that with him, but then got to have her own version, which was totally unrelated, but like the worst luck possible. But like I'm sitting there talking to her about his cancer like a year ago. He's sitting off camera during a Zoom call because they're in England, you know, middle of the morning for me or whatever, nighttime for them. And he's listening to all this, but he doesn't want to say a peep about it. He's so embarrassed. And I struggle with that still, where I talk to men, or like I talk to their partners and I go like, why aren't you like me? Why can't we talk about this? Like,
well, and this is one of those things that I was going to ask, and I assumed what the answer would be, and I think you're alluding to it right now, is that many times the fear of what the unknown might bring is worse than the actual reality of going through when it becomes known,
or the loss of control. You know, I think that's a big thing, and I've like, again, I see a therapist every couple of weeks. Currently, me and my wife are actually seeing like a therapist together. But prior to that, I saw that same therapist, you know, through my whole cancer journey, and I said like, I lost control. Like that's what cancer takes away from you, your ability to control things, even with your granddaughter. Like there's no guarantee that could not come back, that's just like mine, right? So you go like, that control has been taken away from you permanently. How do you find that again in life? How do you find those points of control where you can, like, you know, bring it back? And that's something I still struggle with, you know, on a daily basis.
Let's now that we've kind of opened up the door a little bit, let's go back. We're the time of this recording, we're in the summer of 2025. Okay. Yeah. So was it 2022? When did you start noticing the symptoms, I guess, is the best.
I would say, God.
And what were the symptoms? Because that's one thing that I love, that you want to get it out there for guys who might be, because it's one of those things where a lot of the time we become ostriches, right? Where we want to just put our head down and not into the sand and not.
Yeah. I would say, because my wife and myself, we had our second child in 2021, January, and weren't sure if we were going to have a third, and then decided in 2022 that I was going to get the snip, right? I didn't think that she needed to go through surgery after giving birth twice. So it's an easier surgery for us. So I had, what's the surgery called again?
A vasectomy?
Thank you. I always forget, because penectomy is the other term that I use a lot. Yeah. Yeah,
that one I'm not as familiar with.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But so I got a vasectomy in March of 2022, and then I would say probably in the spring, and they're not related, so don't get scared, boys. Go out there and get that vasectomy if you're asked. They were not. We're not connected. I thought they were maybe, but did the work and it wasn't there. And probably about the spring, I noticed like an irritation, and I was uncircumcised. But very, like, in the shower, always make sure I was clean, like extra precautions. Like, again, I can't relate to other men because this conversation doesn't happen very often, where guys talk about their dicks with each other. Okay, doesn't happen. So noticed an irritation, you know, noticed some redness. It was itchy, and I was like sitting there going, like, I shower twice a day, like, what's going on here? So went and saw my doctor, and he's like, it's probably just some sort of irritation. Here's a cream. I'm thinking, great. So I apply the cream, you know, do the thing, still not getting better. And I'm like, okay, you know, make my, you know, months go on, the symptoms are starting to get worse. They're starting to, you know, it's just getting worse.
Yeah.
And I go to ER finally. I was like, I'm gonna go to the ER one night, and I go to the ER, and I had a couple of nurse friends that said, hey, there's always an not oncologist, a urologist on call.
Oh.
So go to the hospital, explain what's going on, tell them you'd like to have the urologist brought in.
Okay.
I show up at like 11 o'clock, and and I'm not trying to slight KGH any sort of way, but the guy that I dealt with was an absolute.
Yeah.
And he was just like, no one's going to come down here at 11 o'clock at night. It's almost midnight. And I was like, dude, this is not something the GP is going to handle. This is something that needs to be looked at by a professional, like a urologist. And that same doctor's like, here's some more. Here's not an antibiotic, but he gave me a steroid cream.
A urologist being a
no. The urologist never came down.
Urologist, great. It was the other doctor.
It was the whoever handles triage. He was just like, it's not even going to happen. And I'm like, it was a waste.
I got you.
I'm, again, not trying to disparage anybody.
No.
I
just thought, a urologist and prick. There was a correlation. There was a correlation.
There could be. They work with pricks. But yeah. So I get the cream, and it's a steroid cream, and I head home, and I use that for a couple of days, and then it swells up like. I use this comparison with the stories I said. It went from like a cocktail weenie to like a sweet potato.
Oh boy.
Like it was just like,
oh my gosh.
What am I working with here? So I call my GP, and he's like, quit taking it. Like stop. Gosh. And he's like, we'll get you. And so they put me on some sort of antibiotic, and seemed to kind of level out, but it was still there. Yeah. I was starting to have trouble urinating, painful. And so...
Okay, as you're going through this, I gotta ask, because
this is all still in 2022.
Yeah, it's still 2022. So as like the fear, again, you talk about the fear of the unknown. When it comes to men and how we view life and whatnot, this is in many men's mentality the worst kind of case scenario that they could go. Okay, you're nodding. Yeah, like that's like the worst case scenario that you could think of. When you're at that point and it got so bad that you're like, I have to bring in other people. I have to bring in professionals to help me with this. How was that on your psyche at that point? Had the scales tipped enough that where the problem was so bad that you didn't care anymore and you're just going to,
not yet. Okay. Not yet at that point.
So you're still having this battle in your head.
Yeah.
Emotionally.
I'm going, we'll fix this, because it wasn't like as bad as I make it sound. To me, I still saw the light at the end of the tunnel. No one had came to me and said it's cancer yet. You didn't get that call. So, as I'm explaining the story.
But it's also to do with a very personal area of the body and whatnot.
So but like it was starting to affect sleep. It was starting to affect the ability to be intimate with my partner. Yeah. So I'm sitting there going like, Jesus, this is like not just impacting like the ability to do this. It's like, it's starting to get bigger. So then after these creams didn't work, I finally was like, okay. So like, I think it was like, it had to have been October. Mm-hmm. And I had called for a urologist booking, but they book about 18 months out. We've got about 8 urologists for the whole city. This is an actual fact. Yeah. There's not enough. There's, let's say, 125,000 men on average in the city. There's 8 people that can handle their shit. So I was way out there. I think I was waiting till November to be seen by a urologist. So I go in October. The pain's getting worse. Mm. And luckily for me, and I had said, I've been here before. And I go through the whole thing. And I get to the ER, and I finally get seen by an ER doctor. And he says, okay, this needs to be seen by a urologist. And I went, oh shit. And he's like, luckily for you, we have one that's in surgery right now. He'll be coming down later to here. I will call him right now and I'll talk to him. And this was the day that the Clone had their civic election.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I wanted to go vote and I couldn't. I was also pondering possibly running for city politics in the coming years. And so I'm sitting there and he's like, you got to just sit down, wait. And he's like, it could be a couple hours. It could be 10 hours. I said, listen, I can't see a urologist for like another 2 months. I'll wait.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I'm sitting there talking to people. This person's got kidney stones. This person's got this. Lots of people have kidney stones. It was kind of weird. That seemed to be the major thing in the hospital that day. And then this well-dressed chap comes down and I know it's a urologist. He's in a full suit. And I was like, that's got to be the guy. And I'm telling the girl next to me. And sure enough, him and the doctor looked my way. And I'm like, there it is. Yeah. So a couple minutes later, they call me in, put me in a room. He says, take off your pants. Yeah. Sure. Still kind of like.
Old hat by now.
Old hat. Right here. Have a look. And and he was quite forceful. And I was kind of like, it's really ginger and like he's like being just, aggressive doctor. And he's like, God, I've never seen. He's like, this doesn't look normal. He's like, I've never seen a presentation like this. He's like, I don't want to say it, but he's like, he said it could be cancer. he had seen probably 8 or 9 cases in his 40 years of this type of cancer. He's like, I've never seen it in someone your age. He's like, it's always like 65-year-old men that don't deal with it, and by the time they realize it, it's everywhere. It's too late. And I mean, I'd been living with whatever that was, let's say, for the better part of 4 to 6 months.
I was gonna say, so for the last 6 months, did you jump on the Google? Did you jump on the Google?
Not yet. No.
Okay. Well, so that hadn't even occurred to you.
I did, because it resembled other conditions, like balanitis and like other things where like it affected like someone that like didn't wouldn't take care of their foreskin, like being dirty. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting there going, well, that's not me. So like, what is this? Like, and I'm starting to narrow things out. So like I said to him, like, could it be balanitis? And he went, yeah, maybe, but that, so he's like, let's get you admitted. And I was like, oh, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna put you on antibiotics, because they thought maybe it was a viral infection. And I'm like going, okay, so
we're talking like IV antibiotics.
Yeah, so I was in the hospital for 5 days, and I was good, and they put me on antibiotics. I was seen by UBC doctors, like everybody. They're asking me all these questions, like, do you smoke? Do you suntan? Like, did your wife have any conditions? Like all this kind of stuff. No, everything was great.
Yeah.
And by the end of that week, the swelling had went down. It was back to normal, except there was starting to be like kind of a growth on the actual like gland's head.
Yeah.
So for guys that are circumcised, it's like the head.
Yep.
And it was like almost like I wouldn't say bubbly, but it was almost like warts, but not warts.
Yep.
And so I go like, what's that? And it was on the inside of the foreskin and then starting to grow on top of the head. And I was like, so that was still there, but the swelling's down. So I'm a little bit more in my head going, okay, we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
So I leave. He connects me with a infectious disease specialist in Kelowna, and I have to self-administer antibiotics for a month at home. So I've got a port in my arm, and I have to like sit there every like I think it's twice a day. It put these like while I'm working. I'm at work, and I have to go into like a lunchroom and do this while I'm working.
The things we get used to when we have.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting there going.
There's a lot of people who hear this right now, and they're like, "I could never do that." Yeah. You're living proof. No, we can.
We can do easily
that.
do it. It's a pain in the butt, but you can do it. Yeah. Right. And so
it becomes almost like normal.
Yeah.
Like it becomes routine.
And he said the same thing. He's like, if these work, then we know what it was. If it doesn't work, he's like, then the next thing is a biopsy. So we go through a month, nothing changes. I do those meds for a month and not a change occurs. So I know the next conversation when I go in, and he's like, we'll schedule in for a biopsy. So that is October. So then November rolls around and they schedule the biopsy. So I go into the hospital, have to get put under. When they go to so what they were going to do in that procedure is they were going to kind of give me a partial circumcision. It's called a dorsal fin procedure. So what they do is kind of I guess like in a dolphin, you think like a dorsal fin.
Yeah, it's the first place I went was aquatic.
Yeah, so they
you said that.
They cut like a triangle in the top of the foreskin, and it kind of opens it up a bit more so that you can have access to the actual head. And so they were going to do that, and then obviously take their samples.
That's what they were going to.
Like it's called a punch, I think, or something punch.
A punch.
And it goes all the way through and takes sample, like a tree or whatever. And when they did this, I'm not joking, and this is where it kind of gets graphic. Is if you can imagine a penis like this, when they went to do that, it opened up. It's like right,
really?
And inside there was this like cottage cheese almost consistency, and they didn't know what that was. They were like, we've never seen it. So like I've got people that have never seen this, and so when I came out of that surgery and that was told to me, that's when I first kind of clued in that like I said to the doctor, are you going to be able to fix that? And he's like, we can't sew that back up, like that can't be fixed. And he's like, it's not looking good. And I went, okay. So I was like sitting there, and my wife comes, and she's doing her best, they're doing their best to like just not, because like they can see what's happening, and it impacts both of us. So I'm sitting there going, okay. And then so they have to wrap that up, and I have to go see wound care every 2 days.
How old are your kids at this point?
So 2022, my daughter would have been 6. My son would have been like 1.5.
Is that difficult? Like, so at this point here, midway into finding out what things are, what are you telling them? Is that
we were honest?
Difficult?
No, my son's 1.5. He's not talking yet.
Yeah, but the 6-year-old.
The 6-year-old clues in. She knows. So, and her teacher that year also had breast cancer the year before. So there was that. So we were just honest. Dad's sick, right? We didn't necessarily like say, but like, Dad's sick, and we got to do all these things. And it was hard, but like she's an empath, so she gets it. But like at the same time, we're like, we're just gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Like, just don't worry about it. Just be gentle around Dad when you're sitting on him or whatever. Because like for a good part of that time, I'm just laying on the couch. I can't lay in bed. I got I had drainage tubes. I was like a patient, And so I get home after that, and it's a pain in the ass because like now I'm off work. I've called my boss. And I'm like, I'm not working right now. Like I can't.
Did you have benefits? Did you have a disability?
Oh yeah, all that kind of stuff
Thank
was sorted.
goodness.
Yeah, so like that was good. I had not extended. I had extended, but I had
like a disability,
critical illness, and all that kind of stuff. So I was covered.
Okay. Oh, good.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier off camera.
Yeah.
Like I had that prepared, which is great. Because if I didn't, I'd have been worse off. Although the critical illness policy through that job sucked. It was just good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So then that happens, and that was like late November, and he's like, go home and rest, and I'll give you a call when I find out the results. And it was like 4:00, I think, on December 1st. And I saw his number, and I was like, okay. And my wife was sleeping upstairs, and I took the call, and he's like, every sample was positive. And I was like, and we had talked about penile cancer. I didn't know what it was. I was like, testicular cancer.
That's the one that everyone's talking about. Yeah.
I didn't know you could get dick cancer. Like that's what we call it. Like I've got a tattoo that I'll show you later on the back. So you'll see. Maybe we'll get a picture of that for the podcast.
Yeah, there we go. We get the thumbnail.
Yeah, but
boys, we got the thumbnail for the episode now.
Yeah, but yeah, he's like, it's cancer, and I was like, okay. Like, and I said this to my wife a couple months ago. I said, like, only in a couple times in your life do you get this feeling where everything just kind of drops. Like you probably had that feeling when you found out about Alara.
Yeah.
It happens like once or twice in your life.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got that feeling, and I was like, shit. So like, I contacted a friend who lives close to us, and I was like, maybe set up a GoFundMe. Like, let's start on something. Cause I said, like, I'm not gonna be able to afford to go back and forth to Vancouver. When I talked to that doctor, he says, we're going to schedule you to see a specialist in Vancouver. It'll likely happen. He says, and this was December 1st. He says, you'll probably have your surgery before Christmas. And I'm like, with surgery. So like, this is going to happen like within weeks. Right. So I had to prepare mentally for that to happen immediately. And so, like I said to you, I spent that weekend kind of like mourning, like going, okay, like this is what we're going to do. And by that Monday, I was like, okay, when's the surgery? So I had a consult with a surgeon by the name of Miles Manis, who specializes in that, trained in New York. Like the guy's just above bar. Amazing. Yeah. All the people out there that do those surgeries are crazy good. Yeah. And I met him on the 18th, but a week before Christmas, and fly down there, super uncomfortable, obviously. During that snowstorm that they had in Vancouver that year, where the airplanes and everything were shut down. So I fly in the day before it all happens, and I get there, and he does the same thing my urologist does. Checks everything. He goes, "Yeah, this is probably cancer," and I was like, "No, that's been confirmed." Like, and he's like, "We'll probably have to do a total or it's called a radical penectomy. So it's
removal.
Yeah, not the testicles, but the whole penis.
Yep.
And I went, okay, and he's like, okay, and I was supposed to fly back and then get called for surgery and come back. So he comes in the room, does his thing, leaves. And I'm literally on the phone with my wife, and I'm doing my pants back up, and I'm like literally preparing to like leave the building and head back to YPR. And he comes back in the room, and he's like, actually, I just spoke to two of my colleagues. He's like, he used this terminology, we're going to cut the head off the snake. He said that. We want to get ahead of it. He's like, if the cancer is there, he's like, we might as well. He's like, stay here. We're going to admit you, and you're going to have surgery like tomorrow.
Oh.
So I expected maybe a couple more days.
So you had a weekend to prepare for this meeting, which you thought would be okay, and then there's going to be preparation for whatever that next step is, and now here's the next step. I want to ask about that weekend.
After I was diagnosed?
No, yeah, before you got to this, what we're about to here, where you said you had a weekend to grieve and prepare, and then on the Monday it was like, okay, we're gonna go do this, right? Like, I gotta ask, because I know that again, we talk about the fear. The people who are listening to this right now, not just the men, the people who are listening to this are like, like, what are the thoughts that go through? Does every scenario go through your head?
Yeah.
Every scenario that you can think of.
Everything. What's gonna happen with work? What's gonna happen with my partner? Like, how does this affect my kids?
Do I still want to go on?
No.
Never.
No.
Is that because you're a dad?
Yeah. I think even if I'd come across, and we can kind of pivot back, I'd come across like Reddit threads, because I obviously, after this happened, you go down the wormhole.
That's what, okay.
Or the rabbit hole. You go down there 100%. And it's not, I caution people to do it, but also to be respectful of like yourself, because if you go down that rabbit hole too deep, you don't come back up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy with internet these days and with everything. Like you can read the wrong thing. And so I'm on Reddit and I'm finding people that have been through this or that are about to go through this. And the one guy was like, I'll kill myself if I get a cancer diagnosis. He's like, I'm not doing it. And I'm like, so there are people out there that just were like, delete.
Yep.
You get that reference?
I do. Very much. Yes.
Right? And they're like not doing it. And I'm sitting there going, I didn't come into this world. I'm not who I am. I didn't have kids so that I can just hang up the shoes and be like, I'm good. I'm done. You know, so I look at that and I go, I kind of, during that weekend, I kind of like looked at it like, if I got cancer in my finger or my arm, and the doctor came in and said, if we amputate it, you're going to live, you're going to have a normal life. You'll have to get a fake arm, but you'll be fine.
Yep.
And I went, it's a
Yep.
And so I look into things and there's reconstruction and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, okay, so let's cut the head off the snake. Let's, you know,
I'm in agreement.
Let's just,
if we know it's going to happen, might as well let it happen.
And that's what I said. And I said to him, I said, like, this saves my life. And he's like, more than likely, he's like, you're going to have some other, you know, trials and tribulations and we'll talk about those. And he's like, but this is the only alternative. He's like, you can't do chemo and radiation on this type of cancer right the way it is. You have to remove it.
Yep.
And, you know, they said, we'll try to do a partial penectomy where they only take a portion of it. And then you kind of rebuild it. And he's like, and then you'd be able to still pee and still have intercourse. And he's like, but there's no guarantees, right? Like they, you know, and so that was, I never had the thoughts of, you know, calling it quits. It just didn't go there.
Yeah.
But it can, and it does for people.
Yeah.
I know it does.
Yeah. And I mean, these thoughts that come into your head that you can't help. You know, and it's literally like asteroids. You know, they're coming in all over the place, and they're not really predictable and whatnot. But then when rational thought comes in, again, do we focus on the problem? Do we focus on the solution?
Yeah,
you're very much a solution-based guy, and let's not fixate on the problem.
No, and
let's focus on that solution.
That weekend was like feeling sorry for myself. That's how I say it. I got the diagnosis on the Friday. I felt sorry for myself for a couple of days, and then Monday it was like, where do we start repairing? We're like, if I just lay here, I'm not going to survive. Like I said, I wouldn't have survived that month. The cancer would have spread. It would have been bad. And so going back to the, you know, the 18th and the 19th and being told, okay, so I arrived in the 18th thinking flying back on that same day. I did book a flight back. I ended up losing that money because they would not refund me for that.
Oh,
I know. I was like, I had cancer, guys. Nope, they don't care.
Oh,
WestJet, Air Canada, you guys suck. and so I get admitted, and that was a process in itself, getting admitted, because like I go down to the Vancouver General's right there, and the building I'm in is like a urology department, but it's its own separate building. And they're like, just head down to the ER and just tell them. And that was this whole thing because no one communicated. So I spent hours downstairs till about 11 or midnight that night, and I was like, my appointment was at like 2 p.m. because it was the process of getting admitted. I'm not from town. They don't know who I am. I get put in bed, but I'm being told I'm not going to have that bed for the night. It was just this whole thing. It all finally came to a head. I was finally brought into a proper room. And then it was like, okay, where do we go from here? And I was like, so they're like, you should have surgery tomorrow. That snowstorm happens. Yeah. I want my family there. So I'm like trying to book, because the GoFundMe had started to do well. And so I was like trying to book flights to get them in. I got them on the last flight on Air North. And their flight got delayed 8 hours. They finally arrived at 2 a.m. the day before my surgery was supposed to happen. My wife ended up getting COVID while she was in Vancouver.
Oh, man.
So couldn't even come to see me a couple of days after. Ended up doing it anyways. Don't tell anybody. But like just every bad thing that could happen. And like I said, that snowstorm was so brutal. I was watching it from my hospital bedroom. Just tons and tons of snow. The day we flew out, you couldn't have told it.
Well, that's the thing about Vancouver, and when Vancouver has a snowstorm, we had when Alara was at BC Children's actually during her stay in 2020, there was one of those days, and it was funny because we had a care package. Our brother-in-law had a trucking company, and so we didn't know when we went down to BC Children's that we were going to end up being there for months and months and months. Yeah. We didn't know that, right? And so we went down there. She got the cancer diagnosis after they removed the tumor, and it's like, no, you guys are down here for months, and so. My brother-in-law had a care package of stuff for us, clothing and stuff for Candy and I, because we were bouncing from Airbnb to Airbnb. And so it went from his trucking dispatch office to the local Vancouver one. Well, that was on that day, they had one of their snowstorms in Vancouver. And you don't understand, like people who live in snowy communities, You don't understand when a community and a city has been built that they are used to mild
Shuts it
winters.
down.
Oh, does it ever? And for rightfully so, like rightfully so, the water doesn't know where to go as it starts to melt because it only lasts for a couple days.
Yeah, so you have floods
and there's
then.
Floods, you get all that stuff, plus all the parallel parking. It is a nightmare. Now, we had our four-wheel drive vehicles. We're used to the snow. And turns out I went to get to that dispatch office, and it was clear sailing. But yeah, no, the snowstorms shut Vancouver down when that happens.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're in a situation where it's a sensitive situation like that, oh god,
like I wanted them there, right?
Errors, like it's weird.
Like I was lucky too, and I mean I had because I had my experience with like the Air Canada and the WestJet was kind of like, man, it's like I gotta find a cheaper flight, and Air North. If everyone ever flies to Vancouver or back, Air North is dirt cheap, and they're the same planes. They're not any different. The same. The plane you fly to from Vancouver and back,
never even heard of
WestJet, Air North is like a third of the price.
All right, well there we go.
Amazing.
Looking Air North.
So I always use them when I go to Vancouver and back. Right? Maybe I'll get a sponsorship there. Who knows?
Yeah, there we go.
But no, it's so they made it in the flight. We're able to come down. My flight or my surgery ended up getting delayed a couple more days. Mm-hmm. I was in a lot of pain. I was on a lot of pain meds. And then they finally came in, I think on the 22nd was the day I had surgery. They came in the morning. They're like, "You're going down for surgery this morning." And I was like, okay. And from there, it's very much a blur because like, obviously like, I remember the details of like getting down there and getting admitted. They get you all hooked up. Mm-hmm. I remember going into the room. It's very cold. It's very bright and white. There's 50 people in that room. It's very detailed. This is not a normal surgery. There's they've asked permission to film things and show things. They want
they're studying you.
It's a teaching hospital, right? Right. Yep. So like there's 4 students there. Can they watch? Yes, 100%.
Like you said, the likelihood of someone your age
happening again. In my age group, it's what did I say to you? I think it's
100,000. You said,
yeah, Canada, it's 1 in 100,000, and with my age group, it's 1 in a million. So like, it's 1 in a million. Like it's literally. And when I was in that office with him before after he checked me, mm-hmm. where he told me you're going to stay, mm-hmm. he said to me, he's like, and he came in and this is the one part of him I didn't like. I said his bedside manner sucked. Mm-hmm. He came in and he says, and I don't know why he decided to tell me at that moment. He was like, "Just want you to know." And I'm like, yeah. He's like, people with your type of cancer have a 90% chance of not making it in that sense. And I'm like, so you're saying I have a 10% chance of living? And he's like, after 5 years. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, wow. So I'm sitting there in a hospital bed knowing my surgery's coming. And that's where that doubt started to occur. That's where I go like, what's the point? Right?
Yeah.
Right. And so I had to like sit there and again, like reconcile that comment. And so again, I go do my own digging and I find that that's a statistic through BC Cancer for men over the age of 65.
Okay, so for senior citizens.
So I go to him and I say, for your typical penile cancer people, yeah, great. They're 65. Their life is, moving on.
Further along in life.
They're getting close to their golden years. And I go like, I'm half that age. I was 36 when I was diagnosed. Yeah. So I went, okay, I had conversations with my wife and other friends, and they're like, don't, like, you're going to take care of this. So, had the surgery, came out of surgery, felt so good.
Really?
Because what I had was this.
So there was relief.
There, in more ways than one. So what happened is like, I don't know if there's something we can even use. Let's do this. Sorry for standing up.
No.
The camera. So let's use, this is a penis, right?
Yep.
Tip of the penis.
Yep.
My tumor had started up in this area.
Yep.
Where that growth was I told you about. By the time they did surgery, the tumor had made its way to the base, and it was good size. Like there was no repairing that situation.
Yeah.
So that's why they said we couldn't do a partial because your tumor was actually below that point.
Yeah.
That we had to go there and then 2 more inches inside of you and really take everything. I still have the muscles in there. I can still flex them, so I know that I still have the ability down the line if I ever wanted to get reconstruction to.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a pelvic floor muscle that like women have. Men had them too.
Yeah.
And like if I want to, I can.
It's not Kegels, but it's something similar.
No, but I mean, I can like put my hand there and I can feel it, and so can my partner. And I was like, so it's there, right? But like they had to go all the way in and take care of it. But I had this shooting pain that would always go down like the side of my penis and down my leg, and it was like a nerve thing. So when they cut off all the nerves and I came up out of surgery, obviously like there was lots of stitches and staples and stuff, but like there was pain, no pain. I wasn't on the medication anymore. It was like, okay. So I think we ended up staying in Vancouver. So I had surgery on the 22nd, and then they had to keep us for a couple of days. Had some issues with like mobility because of the whole situation.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of get that sorted out. But by the 28th, we flew back. So we missed Christmas that year.
Right.
But we had friends back home that made sure that was all great and had to explain to our daughter, oh, no, Santa knows about this. Like, everything's back at home with the trees. Like, we haven't been forgotten, because like that's the first thing the kids went to was like, well, we're here. We're not gonna have presents. And I'm like, you're gonna have everything. Like, I bought her an iPad. Like, I had done all the even though as I'm going through all this stuff, you still have to be a parent.
Your priorities are still your
Right.
priorities.
So for those like 6 hours, 7 hours having surgery, that's when I wasn't a parent. But when I come back out, it's like, still got to book flights, still got to figure this out, still got to make things happen, got to pay the bills, do all the things. And, so we get back and, I'm thinking, okay, we're in a good spot, great. Little did I know that the cancer had already spread to my lymph nodes. And I had a surgery pending in January. So I get a call the surgery, the first surgery was the 22nd.
So they knew it?
They knew it already. They had already so what they did is they took samples of my nodes while they were there.
Okay.
Because that's
thank God for doing that.
It's protocol with that cancer. They always will, because when penile cancer spreads, the first place it goes to your nodes.
Okay.
And then if it doesn't get caught there, it's anywhere's guess. It could go to your testicles, it could go to your brain, lungs, anywhere. So they took samples and they went, we already know it's spread to some of your nodes in on your right side and in my abdomen, because you have nodes here, here, and here. And what they said is, so what we're going to do is we're going to take them from your abdomen, we're going to take them from your right. Yeah. There's nothing in your left side, but when you take lymph nodes, they have to match.
Oh, okay.
You can't take like 1 here and 3 here. They have to match. So we're going to take the same ones out here as we're taking out here. Otherwise, you're going to have major problems like lymphatic drainage issues. And I still do have that, but it's managed. So I get a call, I think like the second week or maybe first week of January.
Yeah.
And Dr. Manis checking in. How are things going? Oh, you guys missed a suture. I've had to do wound care for a couple of weeks. Like, kind of a pain in the ass. Use a staple next time. Like, I wasn't happy, but like, par for the course at this point. And he said, so what's the availability of you getting down here on the 27th? And I was like, why? And he's like, because we have to do that dissection surgery that we had discussed. Because it was a possibility, but I didn't think that they had.
Yeah. And
he's like, no, we've already booked it. And he's like, so, and it was, I'm pretty sure it was the 20th.
What's the chance you can get down here? No, get down here.
He was like, I was like, no. I was like, I appreciate you calling, giving me a week rather than telling me day of. Yep. So I was like, gotta book flights, we ended up, I don't think we flew this time. I think we ended up driving down. Mm-hmm. So went down there.
Whole family?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Both kids and the wife, and did the whole thing again. I was able to walk over there this time, under my own volition. We ended up staying at a hotel nice and close to BGH. Mm-hmm. So that process felt a little bit more normal. But that surgery in itself is also like a 7 to 10 hour surgery. They're cutting you. When I was finished, I literally had 3 incisions that are about that long. One that goes all the way down from like the top of my abdomen to like closer to where the penis would have been. And then same thing all the way down here and all the way down here. And it was stitches and staples to close it up. And then I had drains.
That was from a surgery standpoint, that one there was a far more invasive one than your first one, you would say?
Yeah. It was because I was like, try walking with 50 something staples in your body. It's like you have drains because they have to drain those areas for a number of weeks afterwards.
What was the recovery? Like, were you recovering in hospital from that?
No, once that surgery was done, I think I was out a couple of days.
Wow.
So I think we ended up driving. I can't remember if it was driving or flying, but I think we drove. I didn't want to drive. No, sorry, I wasn't allowed to drive. I had to wait 6 weeks post recovery, and my wife didn't want to drive. So a friend of ours who lives on the coast, her mom lives here, so we had rented a vehicle. She ended up driving us home.
Wow,
which was amazing. So I just got sat in the front seat, but I'm like this, I've got I'm on some pretty heavy pain medication.
I was going to ask about the pain meds. I was going to ask if you ended up going down the path of like opioids and things like that, or did you?
We have to, but I didn't get addicted.
Good.
I'm not, I'm not one of those. Yeah, so you're on them as long as you have to be, and then as the pain gets better, you switch back to Tylenol and you do the things. But so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, 2 major surgeries, cancer, as far as we've been told, is gone. I'm not cancer free. I'm just what do they call, like, no disease?
Yeah, I know what they
right?
There's no evidence of it.
They
can't call you. There's a they can't.
There's a timeline. You gotta wait till 5 years. Yeah. So when people say, "Oh, you're cancer free," I'm like, no, I'm still. Yeah, I'm still in that wheelhouse. So, I talked to him a couple of weeks after all the stitches came out. Everything was good. Things were kind of getting back to normal. And he said, "I'm gonna put you in contact with an oncologist." And I went, "Oh," because I'm thinking, like, do we have to do chemo? And he's like, we're just going to get your blood results, your scans, do all the things. And so I met with an oncologist, and she says, so our recommendation based on what's happened is that you do 3 months of like super intense chemotherapy. And I went, okay.
Yep.
And they said,
Eradicate every little cell that they
and that's what they said. They
they
said,
get it to 99%. They want that 1%.
yeah,
with
they said
yep.
scans are clean, everything looks clean, but with that type of cancer, it's all microscopic now. And they said, we don't want to run the risk of it making its way up to your lungs or your brain or anything. So they said,
exactly with our granddaughter. Same thing.
but the protocol is, I mean, you went through that with her. Like the protocol for any of those type of cancers is like you throw your kitchen sink at that. So like I was on some of the most aggressive cancer meds you could be on.
Yep.
Obviously lost my hair everywhere.
Yep.
I lost 50 pounds. I was, like gaunt, yellow. Like that was I think that's where a lot of men would go, okay, I lost my penis. I'm not working, like as you continue to go down the story, you go like, when did you ever like really ponder your life? And I go like, I didn't, because like it was the battle. It's like, okay, well, that's just the next step. Like we will get to a point of normalcy at some point where like life gets back to like what it was like. It's just you're missing something.
So okay, I gotta ask you that, because I know for us, like it took my wife and I writing a book about it and really dissecting things and doing the introspective work. Our rock bottom was 4 days in when Alara went in for her surgery. The surgery day was the worst day of it.
Yeah,
like that was the worst. It was the 7-hour surgeries, not knowing. It was the knowing they're going in 2 different places. To remove a tumor the size of my fist out of an 18-month-old. Like it was just, but we didn't know that because of exactly what you said. You just kind of take it day by day, moment by moment. Like you really shrink down time frames. You're not thinking about the future. You're just thinking about each moment to the next moment by that point.
Yeah.
It's only through, by the 3rd round, we look back and we said, what the hardest moment of this was? Our rock bottom moment was the surgery day. I'm super curious. Throughout this process, what was the rock bottom moment for you?
God, I don't know. I don't know if I had one.
It just was a progression. The whole thing was a progression.
You had to go day by day, because I mean, I had been talking with my therapist quite regularly.
Yep.
And I said this to you earlier off camera. I said, like, you have to reconcile death really fast, especially when you get a cancer like that, because the success is low.
Yep.
And so you just have to kind of be okay with like dying. That's weird to say, but you have to be okay with just like, oh, it came back. Oh, we can't beat it. Now it's terminal. Like you just have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And I think rock bottom for me was when I found out. I just didn't think, I was like, why me? Like there are so many worse people in the world. And, and I won't say anything negative about my family members, but there are people in my family that like aren't good people. And I go like, why not them? Like I said that to myself. I like, why not that person? Like, why do I have to experience this? I'm a good person. I'm kind to others. I work hard. Why am I being pushed again?
I'm so glad you said that, Whit, because I mean, these are the thoughts that go through people's minds, and
they don't say them.
Thank you. And many times because other people don't give, it's natural. It's not a permission thing. It's just because people don't say it out loud, they think they're bad people for thinking it.
Yeah. And
really, at the end of the day, it's natural.
Yeah. And I mean, I've always been a forgiving person. Like I say this, I've changed over the years. Everyone changes.
Yeah.
I've struggled with that in certain aspects of my life, because I go like, well, no, but like that's not the person I remember, and that's not the person I remember. And it's like, but in the course of a lifetime, and 3 of us included, like change will occur all the time. You're not the same person you were when you were 10, 20, 30. You change, right? And so, where was I going with this?
No, the thoughts that come into our mind.
Yeah, and that was my rock bottom, man. When
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I started to,
the thoughts of like almost not blame, but like
blame,
why didn't it happen?
But no blame. Like I'm looking to blame somebody, but it's like there's no one to blame, not even myself. Like there's nothing I could have done to prevent this.
I was going to ask about prevention. If there's obviously
we can talk. Yeah, we can get.
We're gonna get into that, because I mean, it's so important. You're such an amazing advocate for this, and I do want to get to that. But I do think that we want to talk about your journey to normalcy.
Yeah.
Was that the second hiccup? Because I know there was a hiccup, and I knew, was that it? Was there, after that second surgery, was there another thing that happened after that, or was that it? Was that...
So first surgery in 22.
Yeah.
Second surgery in 23.
Yes.
Chemotherapy from March until June of 23. Sucked.
Yes.
after chemo's done, we plan a trip to the island.
Yes.
Things start to get normal.
Yep.
Hair starts to come back. Life starts to get normal. Enjoying family and friends.
Your new normal, and realizing that life is just as vibrant as it was
Yeah,
before,
and you just kind of rebuild. I changed my career,
Yep.
Pivoted there and all that kind of stuff. And you just kind of figure out where things are. Kids were growing up, wife was going through changes, all that kind of stuff. And I think we had normalcy for about a year. And you're told like it could come back. So you're still getting your monthly blood work done. You're getting your scans every couple of months. Like when you have the cancer, and this with Alara, like you are in that protocol for 5 years.
Yep.
Or depending on the cancer, it could be longer.
It could be longer.
Especially with children. Like it can be longer, but you're in this protocol for a number of years.
Even if it's a blood test every few months just to make sure
It's
that
exactly because things can change, right? On a dime. And you don't want to find out a year later. You want to find out during that month and then get ahead of it. And so for about a year, things were good. And then we go into the summer of 24 and I start feeling a pain similar to the one from before going down my leg on this side. And it's impacting my ability to sleep. It's hard. There's no growth or anything that I can see or feel, but it's just this like nerve pain. And so I mention it to my oncologist, and I ended up it happened in August, and I had my PET scan, because I got a yearly PET scan in September of that year. And I said to her, I'm not going to bug you about it now. I didn't want to go to KGH.
Because the scan's coming up.
The scan's coming up, but I'm going to go to KGH, and they're not going to schedule a PET scan. They're going to do everything else. And so I was like, let's just wait till then. And it wasn't like bad. It was just irritating. And
your biofeedback was there. Like
it's changed now.
The alarm bell.
Yeah. When you have any sort of thing like this, and any cancer survivor can attest to this, you're just more cognizant of anything, a bump, a feeling, air, wind.
The biofeedback was strong.
Yeah, and I went, this isn't normal. So I go do the scan, and she called me back, and she's like, we're going to do they did a biopsy and I was going to say retinal scan. No, they ultrasound.
Oh, an ultrasound.
So they did an ultrasound of that area, did a couple of biopsies, and sure enough, she calls me as I'm sitting on the toilet one morning. My wife's in the kitchen.
Does.
Yeah, and I pick up the phone. I said, hey, how's it going? She's like, how's your Friday going? And I said, oh, pretty good. And she's like, I said, depending on what you got to tell me. And she's like, yeah, it came back. So it was a tumor about, 7 centimeters, right in there, so up to the right of the penis. And she's like, we'll just have to remove it. So, and then we'll go from there. So again, another surgery, same doctor. I ended up meeting somebody so it was weird. When I had my first surgery, the removal, I was in a room with like 7 other people down in Vancouver. Like they have tons of, it was roomy, but like other people in the room. And I ended up talking to her until the very second last day. And the nurse had left my curtain open, and I was naked. And this lady walks up, and I said, hey, do you mind closing my curtain? She closes my curtain. We ended up talking without seeing each other for like 2 days.
Oh, wow.
She was a nurse in Kamloops, and she had kidney. Yeah. So it's funny, she ends up, so we talked for a couple of days, and we, it was really cool. And then I wake up, I had taken a couple more meds than I should have. So I wake up really groggy one morning, and my curtains are open, and I look, and she's gone. The nurse comes in, and I'm pretty high, and I was like, is she dead? Like, where is she?
No.
Where did she go? And they said, no, she was discharged. And I was like, okay, she's healthy. Like, she didn't die. Because it was like, there was nothing there. So anyways, I ended up connecting with her later. Her name's Kate. And she messages me, and she's like, I have this friend. Do you mind talking to her? And I went, or not a friend. They were in a different group, like a Facebook group. I have a Facebook group that I'm on for penile cancer. They were on one for kidney cancer. And this friend of hers who lives in, I'm blanking on where it is. Taking Highway 3 and then going left before you connect.
Like the Kootenays, like Castlegar or Rock Creek or?
No, not Highway 3. Sorry. Oh my God. It will come back to me.
Okay. But in BC,
anyways, on the way to Merritt. Take a right halfway through. And
Princeton?
Thank you.
There you go.
Princeton.
There you go.
Thank you. Shout out to Princeton.
Shout out to Princeton.
And she had a kidney cancer that had started growing and attaching to a fairly important like vein artery that connects to the heart. So we end up connecting, and I just said, like, she's like, do you mind talking to her? So I connect with her, and I was just like, hey, like, I'm a friend of Kate's. I've heard about this. Like, if you need to talk to somebody, that was my first advocating that I'd kind of done. And I was like, if you want to talk, blah, blah, blah. So I find out that she's actually going to be in Kelowna for some blood work to prepare for this journey she's about to go on. She's a nurse too. And she was like, yeah, I'm actually going to be in Kelowna, blah, blah, blah on this day. I said, why don't we go for breakfast? Right. And she was like, great. So we ended up meeting each other. Her husband, my wife, 4 of us, we went for breakfast for about 4 hours, talked, she was just starting her journey. And then we ended up finding out that our surgical day was the same day.
No kidding.
Same doctor.
No kidding.
Back to back. She had her surgery at 8 a.m. I was at 11.
Oh my gosh.
So I was giving her shit. I was like, if you're holding me up, like, who cares about like, we can have our dark humor.
Oh yeah.
Because and she loves that shit. But I was like, this is someone that needs that type of humor, but also will also go down that road of like, all the worst case scenarios. And she did. She totally did. And I mean, it was expected. And I talked to her on a number of occasions being like, hey, this is normal shit. Like, doing what you're doing, this is totally normal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that in November let me get my dates right here. I'm trying to think. Of November of 2024 on the 8th.
Yeah.
I flew down the day before. We ended up hanging out that day. Her whole family was there. And then she went for surgery that morning. Or the day before, she was like, oh, I should buy all this stuff for my daughter and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, is she getting married? She's getting stuff for weddings. And I was like, is she getting married? She said, no. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm preparing. And I was like, don't. Enjoy today. Enjoy your family. And I was like, she wanted me to hang out that night. And I was like, listen, I got to mentally prepare for what I have to go through tomorrow as well. Even as minor as it is compared to you, I need to prepare for that. So, she went in that morning, and then I ended up, her surgery took longer. It pushed my surgery.
Yep.
Right. So I'm sitting there, I get down there at 11, they get me all signed up, and it's like 1, 2, 3, I think it's like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And I was like, are they still in surgery with blah, 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 blah? And they're like, yeah, how did you know? And I said, well, she's a friend of mine. I said, like, I know about it. So then, later on, Dr. Manis, who's my surgeon, he comes down and he's like, okay, we just got backed up a little bit with that last surgery. He's like, we're going to be ready for you in about half an hour. And I'm just going to get prepared and blah, blah, blah. And I said, how is Alana? And he went, how did you know? And so we talked. There's a whole story about those two as well. And so everything's good. We were able to remove it, blah, blah, blah. I was like, great. Because like I texted her husband. I was like, here's a picture. Like, everything's good. And so, sorry.
Don't be sorry. Like,
I'm not sure why I get emotional when I talk about her. But I do.
Yeah, and it's interesting the way that it works. We talk about ourselves and the things that we go through.
Yeah.
Far more painful.
Yeah. I don't get emotional when I talk about myself.
Far more painful.
Yeah.
But yet, then we start talking about others.
You see it, and then you kind of go like, that's what people thought about you.
And this is the part where why I wanted this to be shot for one of the TELUS episodes and whatnot, because again, it's the fear of the unknown, and it's when you're in it yourself, it's different than when it's somebody else. And because it's different, you think it's going to be the same for yourself, but it's not, and it screws up the mind. It's a mind trap. It's so weird.
And it's tough to explain that. It's like I said, it's
because you're such a light talking about yourself, and you're not a light talking about her. The respect and the emotion is coming out of you. That's how but you're such a light talking about your story, and it's fascinating that that's the human condition many times. How that works.
So
how that works.
So I went into surgery.
But she backed you up. She of these delays now. You actually had a name and a face for it.
Yeah. So we had a joke, and then I went into surgery. My surgery was a couple hours. Took me a bit longer to come out of anesthesia. I ended up getting upstairs late that night. They put me in a private room as I requested because I had insurance for that. I got pulled out of that private room for someone else. Which was funny because
their insurance was better.
Well, so her room's here. Her room is here. My private room is here. They moved me down the hall to a room of like 6 people. I was in there I think I went to that room at 11 o'clock at night. They discharged me by 11 o'clock in the morning because I wasn't required to stay there. And
okay.
Because I was
and this was comparatively, this one here was a walk in the park
compared to the other two, and compared to hers.
And compared to her, yeah.
And then so before I leave, and it was a pain because I had to book a flight. It was an expensive flight because it was last minute. I was like, if you guys can give me one more day, I can book with Air North. It'll be cheap. I just but I had the funds. So I was like, whatever. I'll just book an $800 flight back today. Whatever. And so before I left, I was like, do you guys know where Alana is? And they said, oh yeah, she's just down the hall. She ended up being next door to where I would have been.
Oh my gosh.
So I went and saw her, and she was just loopy, out of her mind, like just totally but she's like, give me a hug. I'm like, no, like just chill. And I was swollen. Like, I had a hard time getting out of the hospital. Like, it was hard because, like, the surgery where they had to go in kind of up above my right testicle. So my testicles were quite swollen after surgery because of that. But, got home, it was a rough couple of days, and, it healed. Same thing. There was a bit of an incision. I bent down when I got home a couple of days after. I think I broke an internal or an external stitch. So that had to be taken care of. I had to go through wound care. They had to do a negative seal pressure thing on my, I had to have,
oh, wow.
Oh, it was a whole thing just to like have that heal, because where the testicles were so swollen and where the incision was, it was pulling on the sutures.
Gotcha.
They didn't think about that. Right. So again, conversations and just stuff that happens. It's just part of it. So I was like, okay, so I went through that process. It finally healed. And then same thing, I talked to Dr. Manis. He's like, so I'm going to connect you with a radiology oncologist. I was like, radiation?
More chemo?
No, radiation. I thought maybe chemo.
Yeah.
When I ended up initially discussing this with them, there was a chemo element to it. What I would do is I would have chemo on the Monday, and then I would do radiation Monday through Friday.
Right.
And I would do that for 5 rounds. So 25 rounds.
For 5 rounds.
So I would only do chemo once a week.
Yeah.
But I would do 25 rounds of radiation, which would be every single day. And radiation, honestly, when they finally figure everything out, it takes 5 minutes for me. Like, it's a quick, the machine actually takes about 4 minutes to do it.
See, this is good to know.
Right?
Yeah.
Basic stuff, but depending on where your cancer is, right?
Well, and people think radiation, and they think the worst case scenario of what they've seen.
You don't go into a big room or anything. You go into a room, and it's literally this machine that just goes around you. And I sent you images, right? So you'll see those.
Yep.
And it's a very basic machine, but once they get you in position and everything's great, the machine literally, I counted the seconds one day. It's 4 minutes and 52 seconds. Like, it's boom, done, right? So but that first
so it's more a scheduling pain in the butt than anything.
And I'm trying to work, and I'm trying to get rides, and you're right. But when I started, so I was like, okay. And so they're like, you'll do one of the drugs you took for chemo. You'll take a higher dose of it, but you'll take it once a week, opposed to that same dose.
As opposed to
5 days a week that I did before. So I thought, chemo will be a fucking slam dunk, whatever. That first week chemo, the day I took it, it knocked me out for a week. I was throwing up. All the meds I was taking wasn't working. Like, it just hammered me, and I went, whoa. Like, not even, because the radiation effects don't really take effect till about week 3 or 4.
Right.
It was the chemo, and I called my oncologist that I had before, and I said, I can't do this. Like, I literally can't do it. And what the chemo did was give the radiation about a 10% boost. And I said, so if I take myself off the chemo, am I risking my life? And they said, no. They said it just helps the radiation be stronger. But they said, if you can't handle, I said, it's literally disrupting my life. Like, I've lost, that week I lost about 15 pounds alone, just that week, just because I couldn't eat. Like, I wasn't eating anything. I was maybe trying to get down some yogurt. I was not drinking water. Like, it was not a good scenario. The silver lining is that chemotherapy will obviously work, because look what it did to my body, right? Like, it was reacting. That's a good reaction.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Like they'll look at that and go, great. If we ever have to run into this again, at least we know chemo is going to work on you.
Right.
So just stuck with the radiation, did chemo that 1 week, and then did the 25 rounds of radiation. And my latest scan, I have a PET scan next month. But all my other scans since, my blood work's all come back normal. So technically, I guess I'm in remission as it stands. Yeah. But definitely not cancer free.
So now we can go to kind of like what normal life is now.
Yep.
It seems pretty normal.
Yeah, trying to make it that way.
It seems pretty normal. And I want to talk about that with family, and because how old are the kids now?
Shoshana turns 9 this month. Lockhart is
9 and 4,
and he's 9 and 4. Yeah, 4.5.
And I guess that because the advocate part, like I'm surprised that this isn't what you do full time, because I mean, you are a light. You are a light to so many, and I'm sure if there was a way that you could do it full time, it would be something that would be appealing. But then would it? Because is it one of those things where you don't even like to think about it or talk about it, or is it something where you have to every day?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I've had this discussion with a lot of people, and you get that, oh, you're a hero and you're an inspiration.
Yeah.
And early on, I loved hearing it.
Yep.
Everyone does.
Yep.
I'm sure anybody would love hearing that.
Of course.
But then it got to a point where I didn't. It actually bugged me. It actually annoyed me, and I hate saying that, because it almost sounds like I'm not like.
Oh no! You're grateful. Like you're not.
Yeah, I was always grateful. I was always grateful, but it got to a point where
I
was
just
just like,
your identity.
Yeah, because I have a lot of friends, I have family where like something has become their identity, and I go like, cancer. Listen, I'll live with cancer, and I will deal with whatever repercussions come from it, and I will do what I can to help others. But I have a life. I had a life before that. I'm gonna have a life after that. So yeah, from an advocating standpoint, like I said, if I ever won the big lottery, and I quit my job for sure, I would start a foundation, and that would be my goal. That's how I would, waste my time. Is that's what I would do with it. I would help people and get to that point. But yeah, like it's like I had probably not talked about this type of stuff in depth with like since maybe the initial discussion about doing the documentary with James. Um, just because people know my story. I put it out there. There's articles online. There's all that kind of stuff. That there's a documentary, hopefully in the works. But it's just you kind of just want to be like pivot and just go like, okay, let's get back to what's normal. Let's focus on the kids. Let's focus on, because it just kind of grinds after a while. Like even like nowadays, like sometimes we talk about it, like it triggers my partner, right? Because like it brings back the feelings, it brings back all the stuff we had to go through, and it's like you don't want to go through that again, But you will if you have to, like it's.
Do you go through it when you coach others? When you are coaching others and encouraging others, because you're an encourager. When you do that, do you relive it?
Sometimes, depending on what I do. When I first had reached out to those two, I guess I didn't really touch on this. So I joined a Facebook group for penile cancer survivors. And a lot of them have passed away. Some of them lived, and ended up connecting with the dude in Detroit. Sorry, his wife. Another dude in Calgary, his wife, and then another dude in North Carolina. And the guy in North Carolina was a drug addict, but had gotten clean, and then this had happened, and he's amazing dude. We talk all the time. He's the one dude I've talked to who's had penile cancer, the actual like the male that I've spoken to. So it was really cool to have that connection. But the dude in Calgary, I speak with his wife. The dude in Detroit, I speak with his wife.
These are the same things to them, whether it's them or their partner. Is it the same, or is it a different?
No, I'll talk about it the same way, because they all went through the same thing. Maybe the way that they found out was differently, but they go through the same protocol. Like the dude in the States, they tend to go the chemo route first and then treatment, and then surgery. Whereas here, it's always surgery and then chemo for this cancer.
Interesting.
And then same thing in the UK. There's different protocols, so it's maybe working around the protocols of how they address it.
Right.
But it's all the same.
But the feelings are the same.
Feelings are the same. So it's like I would have to retell my story, and sometimes my story would be different. Sometimes it would be the same, but I could relate to the feelings, and I'd say like, hey, like, so then they ask like, well, what about when this happened? I was like, you're totally in the right spot. If you need to call me in the middle of the night, do it. Like I was never one to be like when I called her, I'm pretty sure it was about 11 or 12 my time here at night. So I'm calling her in the middle of the day, and I was like, she's like, it's late there. And I was like, I don't care. Like, let's talk. And we talked for 2 hours. Or the dude in the States I told you about, like we always talk and stuff too. But that's different. We have closer timelines. But like,
totally.
I've spoken to guys in New Zealand and Australia and like all that kind of stuff, right? So it was just getting your story out there. But I'm not one of those like, I won't talk about it unless I'm prompted to talk about it now at this point. I had to talk about it when it happened so that I could get the help. That's another thing too. When people, and I mean, we can address that later. When men have mental health problems, they don't ask for help. Even women. I mean, anybody. It's hard to ask for help.
Part of the reason He Changed It exists is because of this exact
the stigma.
The stigma that comes with it.
Right. Exactly. And that was my thing. Is like when I got like sick, I said like I want to beat the stigma around cancer, because I spoke with a lady in the Philippines who wouldn't even bring it up, because in their family, when you get sick, it's like you've done something wrong, like you're to blame for that.
Oh, yeah.
There's a stigma around having it and talking about it, and I was like, holy, like, no, right? But then same thing for men. It's like even apart from like the penis stuff, it's like I've got friends that like, oh no, I don't see a therapist. Why? Oh, you do that. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Trust me, man. Like I'd rather cry in front of a 23-year-old student who just graduated than hold that shit in. Because you know what happens when you hold it in?
Oh, it turns into other stuff.
Turns into cancer, buddy.
There you go. Oh my gosh, you say that. Yeah. There you go.
Cancer of the brain, cancer of the what? Like not literal cancer, but I mean it will. It'll screw you up. But it can also go that way, and I just go like, it needs to be. I want to advocate, and I want to destroy stigmas is what I'm looking to do, right around all of it.
And finding that balance so you don't have to relive it in doing that. and I mean, that's going to be a thing that you go through for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's going to figuring out what that balance is. So it's one of those things like, everybody's heard of Movember now. I don't know if everybody's heard of it, but a lot of us have heard of Movember now.
Mm-hmm.
We think about that. Are there organizations out there that are united? Like, is there a conference every year that talks about this type of stuff? Like,
So,
are there places?
when I talk about
is it
Atlanta,
a new frontier?
No, when I talk, so oddly enough, you bring up November. When I talked to Alana, about half a year ago, she got invited to a urology conference. She prompted me to submit my stuff. It was in Vegas.
Yep.
Big, massive conference, and she wanted me to speak, and didn't, with what's going on in the States, I wasn't super keen on traveling to the US.
Gotcha.
And just, I didn't want to tell my story that way. And I was like, you know what? I don't think it's for me. She ends up submitting her application, and she got to go speak about her particular, because I guess in the realm of urology, kidneys are included in that sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Right. So she got to discuss, and she got to actually speak in front of like a bunch of people, and like at this conference, which was really cool. But November is a huge thing for men's cancers, right? And in that year of kind of where things were good, I looked over their website, and I went, well, they discuss, all the different types of cancers, except they're missing one.
This is why I'm bringing that up.
They're missing one.
Yeah.
And I went, okay. So I reached out to the national director. His name's Todd. And I sent him an email, and I said, hey, I appreciate all you guys do for men's cancer and blah, blah, blah. However, you're missing one. And so I explained my story, and I sent him some links, and he said, wow, same thing you said. He's like, we need to talk about this. So there are some plans. I don't know if it'll happen this year, because it's getting close to November already. Yeah. But there are plans to do some advocacy around that with that particular organization in Canada. And I would hope that if it takes place here in Canada, then we're able to do the same thing, and it becomes part of their, I guess, their roster of what they talk about, because they address the testicular and all the other ones.
Yeah.
They don't talk about penile because it's so rare, but it's becoming less and less rare.
Well, yeah.
The uptick in some of those, like, Australia and like England, you're starting to see it become more common. And I go, like, it's not rare. It's not common here, but it's.
Well, and let's be ready for the, like, I mean, okay, if it's happening at all, there should be a support network for it.
Yeah.
Because the people who are going through it, oh yeah, we don't have any support for you because it only happens to one in every, you don't measure up to the.
That's what I found though, was like
up to the numbers of the
measure up, right?
Yeah, exactly. What do you say? Okay, so the things to advocate for, that it actually exists, all of that sort of stuff. But when it comes to things like, and I mean, prevention isn't the right word, things like that, but the message that you have for guys that are out there, I know you've got a couple and partners as well who are going through this with their partner, and they don't necessarily know tools, things that they can, do, things that they shouldn't do, that kind of a thing. I want to talk a little bit about that because, you've obviously learned a lot. When Candy and I went through this with our family too, like we wrote it down in a book, like all the things that we learned, and that was for us a way to kind of cope with things and get through it. I assume that is a similar thing for you. You're taking the things that you've learned and then packaging them and giving them out when the universe gives you the opportunity to do it. You're doing it today.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that are reoccurring that you keep saying?
Well, I mean, I always tell my guy friends, I was always like, check. Like don't ignore those things. Like, you have to advocate for your own health these days. Even, I mean, we can even talk about it as we get near the end here. I'm suffering from some post-radiation complications that I will have a surgery for later in August. Which I didn't know. I haven't told you. Yes. Yeah. So, but I'm always telling the guys, like, listen to your body, check it. Like, if you notice something's off down there, get it looked at, because you don't want to go down this road, But in relation, I guess, ask that question again.
Well, what are some of the things that you have learned, and the reoccurring things that you are finding that you're telling people as you're telling your story? They're asking for, maybe not advice necessarily, but things that you've learned through this process. If there are things that are reoccurring that, oh yeah, that's something I've clearly learned because it's something I'm continually.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to the medical system, because when this all started, I kind of, when we talk about the blame game.
Yeah.
And I went like, well, why didn't my GP take it more seriously? Should I have filed something against him? And that was a thought in my mind. Should I sue my doctor? Should I sue my family doctor?
Yeah.
And then when I was, pushed away at KGH, should I have filed a lawsuit against KGH? all these things come in your mind. So I kind of, I guess and I'm not throwing shade at anybody. I love the KG.
No.
I did the thing for the KGH Foundation. It's just at that moment you're angry and you want to blame something. And, you know, when you finally come around to it, what I said is you just have to advocate for yourself. Like that's a thing nowadays anyways, with any sort of health condition.
Absolutely.
You know, if you don't push the narrative, things won't happen quickly. So I've always say to people, like, if something happens, like, push the narrative, like, do what you have to do, send that email, talk to that person, use your contacts. You know, how many times have I reached out to friends I know that work at the hospital? Who do I talk to? Who do I send this to? Here's who you send it to. Go do it this way, you know, or even with this particular complication I'm telling you about, I had to email my oncologist, my urologist, who I wouldn't see for like another 6 months, and just send a scary email saying, like, here's where I'm at. I'm in pain. This is what's going on. How do we fix this? I know what this is. You know, we've gotten the scans back. We need to move on this, not wait 6 months. And, you know, a couple of days later, you get an email and things start to move quicker, right? So it's advocation for yourself.
You're talking about being proactive versus reactive. Many times we're reactive to the point where before it's too late, before we do anything. You're saying be the opposite in every way possible.
Everything.
Not just but be proactive the whole time.
You have to.
Be proactive.
Especially with your health, right? Like, too many people don't do that. And then, especially for guys with penile cancer, you know, a lot of those guys that didn't survive, they're in their 70s and they find out when it's already spread here, and then it's in your lungs. There's nothing you can do. You're terminal. You might as well just get on chemo and see what happens. I don't want to do that. You know, will this disease take me out someday? Maybe, maybe not. Right. So I don't live it that. I live day by day.
Well, see, and there's the other theme that I've heard 5 or 6 different times, the idea of being present. And staying present.
And I wasn't before. I when I look back at like who I was as a person even 5 years ago, I wouldn't say I was a bad person, but I wasn't who I am today. I wasn't present. I was always
living in a future that
I was pre-planning. I was, you know, like defending. I wasn't there. And that impacted my relationship with my partner too. Like, that's on top of being sick and having, because they had also suffered through post-concussion syndrome after a car accident a couple years before that had happened. So, like, I'm taking care of them, and then, you know, I get sick, and we've got to flip the script without having any sort of preparation. And it's just like, that's difficult to deal with.
Were they stay-at-home mom before?
No, they were working. Yeah, we had childcare and stuff, but but when that accident occurred, it's like, again, I've never suffered through this because I've had concussions, and I, you know, haven't had them in a long time, but that was their first concussion. So the post-concussion stuff, you know, it created depression, anxiety, all that kind of stuff. And I've seen it, you know, I've experienced some of that on my own, not because of a concussion, but I understand it, and I've seen it in other people. So it's the same thing. It's advocating for that. And we found that with their journey through what they were dealing with, we didn't have a lot of supports. Whereas when I went through my thing, I got all the support. So there was that, like, not disdain, but
well, the fact that it's not
resentment.
A community resentment, because there's a community rallying around one thing and it's silent crisis,
and it
for
shouldn't
the other.
be. So I'm sitting there going, so like, while we should advocate for cancer or whatever, you should be also advocating for mental health for everybody. You know, there should be resources. There shouldn't be, well, you make too much money, so or you don't make enough, so like, there's
why is that part of the equation?
Why do you think we have people sleeping down on the rail trail? Because a lot of those people have mental health issues that they can't get addressed because the system doesn't help them. So
there's a fire. Let's put the fire out.
Let's do the fire. Let's not find out why it starts firing again. Like, so it's just stuff like that. It's advocation. I love advocating, and I mean, that's why I did that thing with the KGH Foundation last year too, right? It's like, put my name out there so that hospital gets more money, so that people don't have to go to Vancouver, so they can be seen here. That was the whole point. I loved being involved with that program.
The idea of okay, so here's okay. What have you learned about your ego?
Because I had a big one when I was younger.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Used to play hockey. Still play hockey.
Were you aware of it though? Like clearly.
No, because in your 20s you're an idiot. Can I swear? You're an idiot. And I see these guys.
We'll leave it out for TELUS, but for you, we'll let it go.
but I see these guys now that I like, because I run the ball hockey league in town too. Yes. And I see these guys in their mid-20s and they're getting suspended and they're punching guys in the face. And I'm like, I was you. I was you 15 years ago. You're an idiot. When you're 40 and you got kids, you're going to be a different person. I'll have runway for you. I will give you the runway. I will not throw you. Yeah, like, I'll suspend you and I will deal with you within my capabilities. but I don't usually throw a lot of people off the bridge. I've got friends that referees I used to ref with. I got friends that like I shouldn't be friends with because they're just losers and they're just not, they're not for me. But then you give them runway, you let them have that time to like grow, and then you see them again. You go, hey, you've grown, you've changed for the better. I got runway for you now, right? I don't need you in my life back then. I need you in my life now, right? And the people that don't serve you, I learned that through cancer. There are certain people in my life, family members included, that did not serve me. So bye-bye. Blood is not thick.
Chapter on my side of the book on that.
Blood is not thicker than water, and I will say that to my dying breath. It's not. Like, if you don't serve me in a way that like helps me like get better,
you find out who your friends are. You find out who the people that are really in your corner are.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah,
and what a blessing that is.
Yeah,
like that's the other. And I can tell that we have synergy when it comes to this, because what if it didn't happen and these are people that are in your life and you're unaware that the only reason that they're in your life is for X, but when times get tough, they're gonna bolt on you.
Yeah.
Isn't it a gift knowing who those people are and who they aren't?
Yeah.
Which ones are the ones that stick around?
And then you grow with those people. You go, okay, you're part of the team. Come on in, right? And some of those people
what a gift that is.
Yeah, and I knew who some of those people were, so I leaned on them heavily. But then when we created a group, I can't remember what my wife named it. Something about Save or something. It was funny. It still exists. There's still like 300 members. We haven't done anything to it. We'll throw the link up there.
Shout out to Save Whit's group.
And but like that's where like the people would like, we'd make a comment and you get a bunch of comments and people would be like, we had people bring over food. I had a friend that went to Costco and just bought a bunch of groceries and showed up one day, paid for flights, people that started the GoFundMe, people that would check in, send me DoorDash stuff. This is all when I was really sick. And it was just like, you appreciated those little things, because it was like, I'm on disability through work, and it's like, so it's a very small amount of money. My wife was having to like pivot with their job, deal with what I was dealing with. So like financially it was not easy to deal with that, with you're traveling back and forth. So like, I was fortunate, but other people aren't. I've met people that don't have that connection, and I go like, look for it. Here's where you look for it. Like do your, but I haven't come across somebody yet that has like kind of went down that rabbit hole, never come back after getting cancer. That lady in England I was telling you about, she went there after she got cancer. She got the diagnosis and she was like, I felt like driving my car into a semi this morning. And I was like, why? Because I'm not going to beat this. And I was like, you're going to beat this. Like you have the best doctors you can. Like, what are you starting with? Chemo. Great. You're going to hate chemo. It's going to suck. Like, call me anytime you need. You're going to throw up. You're not going to be able to eat. You're going to lose a ton of weight. It's better than Ozempic. It's hell of a drug, that chemotherapy. I said, that's better than any diet, But like, she got through chemo and now she's waiting. Now she's in remission and she's waiting for a scan. Like, she did it, but she was there. She wanted to end it.
So for the people who are listening to this that are going through something, whatever stage it is, that encouragement, I think what you just said, I think is like, it's water in the desert, and we're stronger than we think.
Yeah. That's what I learned too. Like, like doing that kind of stuff. Like, even the pain I'm going through right now that I was telling you about doesn't pale in comparison to the, pre-surgery. It doesn't pale in comparison to the chemotherapy. Even the radiation was very difficult near the end, especially on that pelvic area. You know what I mean? And you just find out who your friends are, and you find out how strong you can be. And I mean, there are people that will watch this and go, well, I'm terminal. What do I do? And it's like, embrace it.
And be present every day.
Yeah. And do what you can to survive.
Because we're all terminal.
Yeah.
We are. Like life is terminal.
Yes, we're all, that's what I mean. But, but someone that's got 6 months left, like there was a guy in the group that got, he was told his diagnosis had spread and he was terminal. And they said, do chemotherapy and you'll get 6 months. He did chemotherapy and he got 6 to 8 months. And he did that because he wanted to just live out the things he wanted to do. He traveled, he went and did this. He was sick as a dog, but like sick and still did his life.
Right. And as opposed to autopilot, not even realizing that you're terminal, wasting away the time that we have.
Yeah. Just live life.
The other thing that I see with you is gratefulness.
Yeah.
And I mean, we talk about gratefulness in all sorts of different ways on the show here, but in he changed it. Gratefulness is a silver bullet in so many ways. It really can. It can take the edge off of anxiety. It can do all sorts of stuff. Gratefulness is such an amazing thing, and you've clearly got loads of it.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you're grateful for?
Oh, my wife, my kids, that friend group that we talk about, like, I mean, some of those guys still check on me via text. I mean, we see each other a lot because I play hockey with some of these guys, but sometimes I'll just get a text. How you feeling? How are things? I haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks. How are things? Like that kind of stuff. It's just like, oh, that feels really good. You know what I mean? Grateful for life. Grateful for my medical team. Like, like
Here it comes.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is get you just talking about what you're grateful for, and here comes the emotion. You can talk about the most. It's so cool. It's so cool to see that. Like that's such a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Because the unknown is, oh God, this is happening to me or whatever, and you think that that's where the despair, or that's where the emotion is going to come out. No. It comes out for gratefulness for the people around you, and
those people. Yeah, like as people, like I'm grateful for you guys to tell the story. Like it's I'm crying and I'm laughing at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for just what I have.
I'm grateful that we as a populace have you, and I know your story's not done, and it's cool to be like, we were going to do this a while back and then it didn't happen, and then our
timing,
he changed
life,
it. Yeah, timing of everything, and the timing of just the app and where things are going with he changed it, and heCast and all of that. And I'm grateful that we were able to do this one, and I'm going to call it part one, at this part of your story.
Yeah,
because your story isn't even close to being done yet. It's just, in some ways, I know it's blossoming into a flower. Like I know it's blossoming, and I can't wait to check back in with you, a little bit further down the road and see where things are. But I can't tell you how grateful I am. I'm grateful for anybody who will go through something and then take what they've gone through and try and make the world a better place. Whit, in so many ways, you're living that. And I can't tell you how grateful I am that citizens like you exist in this world.
I appreciate
because
that.
You do make this world a brighter place, having gone through something that that many people would find even almost unimaginable, much less able to discuss it, much less able to use it for other things. So thank you very much for being 100%. Who you are.
I appreciate that.
And man, going through what you've gone through, it's a real example of resilience and what the human spirit is, and attitude, and how important attitude is. Your attitude is incredible.
Yeah, I'll speak to that real quick before you sign off.
Please do.
That was one of the biggest things, is I met a lot of people doing chemotherapy, and they said, you're so upbeat, and I said, what's the alternative here? Like part of the medicine's great, not great.
Yep.
But like you have to have that attitude, and it's almost like 90% attitude, 10% medicine. Like if you have a bad attitude, you will not survive cancer.
Is that a decision?
Yeah.
You can decide to have a good attitude.
You have to.
Okay, I fully believe that, but sometimes I feel like I am like an umbrella in a hurricane with that statement.
No.
And someone like you
like silver
can
lining.
really speak to that. So we can decide the attitude that we have in every situation that we're in, right? We can make a decision.
Yes. 100%.
Who doesn't need to hear that? Everybody needs to hear
right?
that.
And that's what got me through the treatment. Is like,
you decided to have an upbeat attitude.
What other alternative do I have? They're putting poison in my body. Like ha 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 ha. Like I have a tumor in my body. Ha 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 ha. Right? So yeah, no, that's what you got to do.
I love you. I appreciate.
Love you too.
Thank you so much for this.
No worries.
I appreciate this. The vulnerability, all of it, and I can't wait for the next part as we grow and as this thing grows. If we can provide a platform for you to do the things that you want to do, we are going to certainly do that. Whit Penner, thank you very much. If people want to find, do you do the social media thing? If people want to follow you, where do they find? Are you that guy?
No, I mean, Certified Whitaker on Instagram.
Okay, but if the doc is going to be made or whatever, we will certainly
throw it out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
you'll have to get better at that. If you got a doc that's going to come out,
yeah,
we're going to have to get better at that.
100%.
So we'll get that. We'll help share it. This is why we do the show. I mean, my goodness, at the beginning of the show here, I talked about the importance of messages like this. I think finishing it off with the attitude, whatever it is that you're going through right now, where's your attitude? Could it improve? Could you make a decision to improve that attitude? And if so, will that improve the situation? Give it a try. I bet you it will. Are there things that you're grateful for? I mean, my goodness, many, if not most of us, are not going through the tonnage of things that Whit went through and has gone through and is still going through in some ways. where's our head at? Where's our heart at? These are phenomenal things that we can talk about and ponder. This is why He Changed It exists. If you haven't downloaded the app yet, what the heck are you waiting for? Lots of good things coming. This has been another episode of heCast, the official podcast of He Changed It. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.